In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Lux Blox. If you're new to Lux Blox, this is definitely the video for you. I'm going to show you how to use all the pieces, how they go together, how you can build things with them, and get you going on a journey of being a great builder, creator, artist, inventor, scientist, poet, Renaissance person, dilettante, polymath. Anything goes with Lux Blox, so here we go. Okay, these are Lux Blox. The egg looks like an egg, and the nest looks like kind of a U shape, but we call it the nest, okay? And the egg goes in the nest like this. Each egg gets its own nest, and you just push them in until they snap, okay? The bad way to do it is just to try to force them in like this. You could do it, but they're ramps, okay? They ramp into each other, so they'll go right in there smooth. They'll go right in. So now you'll see when they connect the Lux Blox, same plastic as like a Lego, but when they connect, they bend and then they snap and make a hinge, and that's how Lux works, okay? So I'm going to give you an example of this. So a chain of 3 Lux, okay? It's a chain of 3. I connected 3 together. But if I close them in and snap them down on each other like that, they become a very stable structure, okay? They're very constrained. They can't move. Very solid structure, and it's called a prism. It's called a triangular prism, okay? And it doesn't wiggle at all. It is a nice little thing. You can make a long stalk of these. We'll show you that in a little while, but this is a prism, okay? If you take a chain of 4, you could, of course, just go around, and you could snap it together, and it'll wiggle. Unlike the triangle here, this one will actually wiggle. This will wiggle back and forth from a diamond into a square, back into a diamond this way, okay? So it's a prism, but it's also unstable. It moves. And then if you had a chain of 5, I could snap that together, this chain of 5, and it'll wiggle too, but it'll wiggle even more than the square will wiggle, okay? It'll wiggle from a pentagon, this 5-sider here. It'll turn into like a house shape when you draw your first house in kindergarten or first grade or whatever. And it'll also wiggle into this trapezoid shape, which is kind of like a triangle with its top cut off, okay? And then if we had 6, a chain of 6, we could just fold this up and snap it together. Do you guys know what this shape is here? It's like, you see these like beehives and stuff, right? It's a very common shape. It's called a hexagon. It's a 6-sider, a hexagon. And this one is even more squishy-wishy. This will turn into a triangle because it'll have 2 sides on each side, 3 sides, and there's 2 squares on each side. This one had 1 Lux on one side. This has 2 Lux on one side. So 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3, okay? And so that's what else can we turn this to? A triangle? That's a hexagon. What else can it turn into? What's this called? That's called a chevron. You can see this on the shoulders, on the arms of soldiers and Marines and sailors. You'll see these chevrons, and airmen in the Air Force. You'll see a chevron. It's a shape, okay? It'll also make this shape. It's a bow tie, okay? So it starts squishing into lots of different shapes. 7 is we'll make a heptagon. A 7-agon is a heptagon, H-E-P-T, and it is a fun shape. It's even squishier now, and it'll make lots of different shapes, okay? You can see that you get lots of squish now, lots of squish. And you can go over here to a nonagon. This is a nonagon, so 3 on each side of this triangle. It's a 9-sider, a nonagon. Okay, and it's a lot of fun too. So you can make bigger and bigger polygons. And I wanted to show you that because these make chains, and the chains will make structures. Now here's something interesting. If I take 3 chains of 9, I could snap them together and make this. We call this a flexor. Okay, this is a flexor. And the way it's really easy to make. It's, like I said, it's 3 chains of 9. So I'm going to take these chains apart to show you what I mean. Okay, we have 3 chains of 3. So we have 3 chains of 3. And the way I'm going to make this flexor is I'm going to connect these top 3 first. Go like this. 1, 2, 3. But just the top yellows, okay? Eventually I'm going to connect the middle and the back part here. So the front, the middle, and the end. First I'll do the 3 on the top. Snap them together so you make like a flippy floppy flower. Kind of a floppy flower, okay? And then I'm going to count up to the middle, which is the purple. I'm going to connect the purple together, which is the middle of the 9. Then I make a squid. It's like a little squidman kind of guy here. And then I'm going to connect the top. and that's your flexor. So I have 3 of those prisms here in the middle and the ends, and there's bridges that go across, 3 bridges on each side here. And that's how you make a flexor. It's really fun to play with. It's very satisfying. 2 more things I want to show you about squares. To make a cube, you make a simple cross like this, and all I have to do is just fold it up. I fold it up. Help it with your fingernail. If it doesn't want to go, just put your fingernail like that and go, boop, it'll go in. Now, these are hard to take apart. Cubes are hard to take apart. But one thing that's cool about Lux is it's got a hole in the middle. So all you need to take it apart is something like a pencil or a pen. Usually pencils work good because they're thinner. And you just take it and you pry it open like that, okay? You could also use other things that fit in that hole in the middle. You can use our multi-axle. This is a multi-axle, and you could just stick it in here like that, and you could pry it open like that, okay? And you could also use if you're careful, you can use a popsicle stick. But you don't want to do it this way, it'll break. You want to do it this way. You know, so you're using it like a beam, okay? Not like a plank. So I go like that, and I get pried open like that, okay? Like that. One thing I want to tell you too is Lux Blox have dimples. So there's a dimple on the inside of the egg here, and it's smooth on the other side of the egg, okay? So they'll go this way, but they won't go that way. And that becomes important, especially when you're trying to connect 2 things together. So let's say you made 2 prisms, okay? You made 2 prisms, and you made them both with the dimples on the inside. They will go together just fine. They'll snap together, and you can make a really long one of these, okay? But let's say you made one that looked just like the other one, but there was one big difference. One had the dimples on the outside, and one had the dimples on the inside. They look alike, sort of, right? But if you look really carefully, they're not alike. So they won't really go together because the egg will go in the egg and the nest will go in the nest, and it won't connect. You can flip it if you wanted to and make it connect this way, like that, but it's not the same thing, right? So watch that dimples, okay? Watch your dimples. Last thing I want to talk to you about is this. These are the multi-axles. They go into the squares and the other shapes like this, and you either could do it so they stay, right? Or you could do it so they spin. See how they spin? Okay, and you can put wheels on these, and I'll show you that in a second. And also you can use popsicle sticks, and you can put 2 popsicle sticks in 1 square. So there's room to put a popsicle stick like this, and then room to put it on the other side like that. So you can keep connecting popsicle sticks to it and make it like a Tinker Toy. You can make it strong with popsicle sticks, okay? And you could also use pencils. Pencils go in here, and you could use those too, and you can make an axle with a pencil too. Okay, those are the squares. Next, trigons. This is a trigon. It has 3 edges instead of the square's 4, but the edges have the same connector, so you can put a trigon into a square, okay, and they bend the same way. And so you could put these together, and you can make different connections with them. Okay, so trigons, because they're 3 instead of 4, they do things a little bit differently than squares, okay? They move a little bit differently, and I'll show you why. So here is, if you remember, we had 4 squares that made 3 squares that made a prism. To make this kind of a prism, we call this an anti-prism. Trigons make anti-prisms because there's 3 here, but on the flip side, the triangle is upside down, okay? And it takes, instead of taking 3 trigons to make an anti-prism, it takes 6 trigons. I'll show you. I'll open this up, and you'll see right here, this is a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They curl up into and they make a helix. You could actually twist these, and they'll twist into a little helix shape, okay? But they'll form into a antiprism, okay? Sorry, there's a square antiprism. It is 8 trigons in a chain of 8, but we'll put them together and make a ring, and it makes an antiprism. Okay, and they're cool because they're really smushy. They're smushy in a different way than squares. They almost like make little mouths that open and close. They're really beautiful. This is a pentagonal antiprism. It has 10 because it's 5 and 5 to make 10. Unlike the prism, square prism, which only needs 5 to make this. This needs 10. So it's a chain of 10. You curl it up. And if you do it wrong, it's cool too. Let's do it wrong on purpose. Let's do it wrong. Is this wrong? No, this is actually right. I thought it was wrong. But you can see it really smushes. It's very smushy and it smushes in different weird ways. Okay, so this is just, oh, this is wrong. This makes like a little dinosaur head or something. It's a really cool shape. So these are the Trigons. And of course, I sound like I'm nerding out about how cool Trigons are, but they're pretty awesome. Now, what Trigons want to make right away is triangles. So triangles make triangles. So if I make a big tessellation here, like I snap all these triangles together to make this thing, these are just a bunch of Trigons, you'll see the green one in the middle is going to be the bottom of a bigger pyramid. So it's going to turn into a pyramid here. You see that? This all curls up into a pyramid. And if I want, I could snap these together and make this into a pyramid. Let's see this. I'll snap this together. You'll see this snaps into a pyramid. Okay? So that's what it'll do. And you could not just do that. You could do snowflakes. And let's say I have a snowflake pattern here, and I want to snap that together. So I don't have a trigon on these middle parts here. I could keep putting trigons here and make this go forever. But if I do this, and I had subtracted, there was 5 here. If there were 6, it'd be flat. If there's 5, though, it's going to curl up and think about a soccer ball, for instance. It's going to curl up into a cage. And this is why triangles are so interesting, because triangles are actually the shape language of proteins, and your body is made out of proteins. All animals and plants are made out of proteins. Proteins are the building blocks of nature, and this is how proteins build little houses for the code of life, which is like RNA or DNA, okay? So these things right here are examples of that. Here is these are 20 trigons. These are 20 trigons that I put together to form an icosahedron, okay? And so this is a ball made out of 20 trigons. And I can keep making these bigger and bigger. This is a ball made out of 60 trigons, okay? Same idea as this one. This has just been multiplied bigger, but it still has 12 of these pentagons here, 12 pyramids, 12 pentagonal pyramids all connected together. 12 times 5 is 60, so it's a 60-sider. This is a 20-sider, an icosahedron, and this is a buckyball or a virus shape. And this is even a bigger one. Look at this beauty. Okay, so these are all related, just bigger versions of these balls. Okay, and this imitates a coronavirus. Okay, this is the basic shell of viruses. Have these icosahedral, almost like soccer ball shells. So you can make these with trigons too. So trigons are just freaking awesome, right? So if you make some trigons like this, okay, you could fold them into a tube. We call these a nanotube. Okay, so it'll make a nice tube shape, like a sphere. That's a pentagonal one. You can make it square, and so it's a beautiful thing to build with. Okay, it acts very differently in squares because it bends in more directions than squares. Actually, even though it's a 3 trigon, and squares have 4, these are much more like clay. When you smush them together, they bend more in your hands. So they're like a clay. So these are trigons. And last thing I want to show you is when you put trigons and squares together in different ways, you can make different patterns, and they look different, but they also act differently. So when you fold them, okay, depending on how you arrange the triangles and squares, you can make different things, like, for instance, like a dinosaur head, right? Or a snake head. It's like a snake head, okay? So you curl up the crown here like that, like a Tyrannosaurus, or a Triceratops, okay? So, and lastly, I want to tell you is going in the hole in the middle of these guys. This trigon is a little bit different than the square. The square has a star shape here. The trigon has the one key hole there. So you could put the key through there on the multi-axle. You can put the key in for a driver, or you can put it through, let it spin too, just like on the square. Okay? And also you can use a dowel. You can use a pencil. And you could also use a popsicle stick. It fits right in where the keyhole goes. And so you can use a popsicle stick as well. So you can really play with a lot of things in your house. You can play with these. So trigons are awesome. Next, we're going to talk about how trigons and squares go together. Now we're going to build some houses, and most houses in the United States and Europe look like this. They pretty much have a cube as the body of the house, as the frame of the house. It's a cube or a rectangular structure, and on top usually have a prism, okay, or you'll have a pyramid. And with Lux pyramids we use trigons, and with the prisms we'll use squares, and if you want to face them you can use trigons. Okay, so the first one I'll show you how to build this now. So this is your typical house, and it has the triangle on top and the square on the bottom here, but it's really a three-dimensional thing. So it's got a prism on top and a prism on the bottom, a cube prism, a square prism, and a triangular prism. Okay, so this is how you build it. So I would say the easiest way to do it is to lay it out. So we have the bottom here, we have four sides here, and then we have the front, which would be the top of the house here where the attic is, and this is the roof here. The black is the roof. So you'd lay it all out, snap it together, and then you just start framing it in and bring these up and connect the sides like that. It kind of zips up. So you're making a house with an inside and an outside. And then for the last part here, so now we have that done. And the last part here, we just basically connect the triangle part, the trigon part, with the roof, the black part. Remember, you can use your fingernail to help you stick these in there to ease it in there. See that? And then we have the house with the prism roof. Okay, you could also make a house with the pyramid roof, and you do that by doing this. You lay it out again, and this time we have the same thing. We have the floor, the four walls, and we have the roof. And the roof's going to be four triangles that are going to make the pyramid. Okay, same thing. We just bend this up like this, so these attach. Now, I do the roof last, but you don't have to. And lastly, this wall here, all four walls are connected. Now you have a box, because a house is basically like a box, right? And then the top is going to be the pyramid on this one. So we're just going to start zipping this guy up here like this. And the last one goes here. There you go. So that's how that looks there, like that. So now let's say your house though is not a square, because most houses are not squares, they're rectangles. So how do you deal with that? The nice thing about a rectangular house is, so this would have a rectangular bottom here, is that you can do a prism. Okay, we can put a prism on top, a triangular prism, right? That would work fine. But if you want to do a pyramid, you're going to have a situation where the pyramid is going to be too long. It's going to be weird. And that's what we have is called a hip roof. So what we have is we have a shape that'd be a combination of a pyramid here and a half a pyramid here, but the transition between the two pyramids is a stretched out pyramid. So basically it's a hip roof. We have pyramid, and then a prism on the in-between. Okay, and it looks like this, and basically it's made all out of, this one's made all of trigons. Okay, I'll show you what that means. So, and hip roofs are very common on houses and garages. Okay, it's a combination. It doesn't have the flat face of the prism. It has a pyramid face and then a prism face. Okay, how do you build that? Well, it's similar to the ways we build other stuff. We lay it out. This is the wrong one. We lay it out. And we have here the prism side, and then we have here the hip side, the pyramid side. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean. So we start assembling the walls together. And then you'll see you have this, the roof. And this is going to make the hip roof. It's going to make this roof. Okay, so put this together here. Got this, and the last one. And there we have the hip. Oops, I just caved it in. I don't want to do that. Let's see. I want to make sure all your pieces are bent just the right way. And this is a hip roof, okay? So you can see the difference is you have a hip on the side, and you have the profile looks like this. You have this front view, looks like this house, kind of, but it's different, isn't it? It actually looks just like this house, looks like the pyramid house. But the difference is that this pyramid goes like this, it's symmetrical this way. This pyramid, whoop, it goes long, okay? And then, so the side view of this one is the same as the front view. The side view of this one is not the same as the front view. So that's a hip roof. And then, of course, you can make this one here, which would be just a longer version of this one. Okay, it would just basically be, so we can compare the two. So this is a rectangular footprint of a house with a prism roof. Just like the cube roof, cube one, and then we just go like this. Like an old-fashioned toolbox, and then you can, or a birdhouse too. Birdhouses are commonly this kind of structure too. And you could make a birdhouse with Lux Blox. It'd be really cool, actually. Okay, so then you have this profile. The front view and the front view are the same, but look at the side view. The side view is this. This one's just a longer version. So this is a house or a barn with a footprint that's a rectangle and a footprint that's a square. Okay, and that's how you build the house. And a house is a great way to start building with Lux Blox, because you could introduce these three forms, the pyramid, the prism, and the cube, and the hip roof, and the gable roof, and you could have a lot of fun just starting with that before you get into more complicated structures. Next, we're going to talk about machines and the Lux Blox wheels. These are the Lux wheels. This is the Trigon wheel, or called the multi-wheel, and this is the square wheel. And we call them that because this is the wheel. The Trigon wheel is the wheel where you can put a Trigon into it. And the best way to put a Trigon into a Trigon wheel is to go one connector at a time. So basically, I snap the first connector in, okay? And then it's just hinging there. And then you ease the other one in like that. That's the easiest way to do it. Same with the square. The same with the square, I just go like this. I put the first one in like that, and then I just help the rest in, and they go in real nice. If you try to squish all of them at the same time, it's a little more difficult. Okay, and the way the multi-axle works, the multi-axles work is this. The multi-axle, we call it that because it has multiple functions. It has a key, and it also has a smooth shaft. So this way it works is, you put the key in to the star hole here of the square, for instance, and if you just put the key in, you could drive it. You can make the axle move the wheel. But if you put the wheel over onto the smooth part, then you could spin the wheel, okay, and the axle stays the same. Again, if I put it on the key, and then I could do that, and I could make a top, for instance, right? Because it's driving the wheel, okay? So over here, this was a number 7 axle because it has 7 keys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keys, or 7 spaces, okay? This is a number 5 multi-axle because it has 5 keys. And this is a number 2 because it has 2 keys, okay? If I put a number 2, I'll also do number 5. I'll put a number 5 into the Trigon. Now the Trigon has only 1 key opening here as opposed to the star of the square. So you have to put the key into the key lock here like that. Again, it works as a driver or as a smooth shaft for just spinning, okay? And you could also make a top out of this one too. Okay, so that's how those work. And they work this way so you can make machines, because a machine You want to, machine is a device that creates work and translates work around a system. So work is a word we use to talk about how energy is moved around a system. It's work, okay? And I'm gonna show you that in a second. First, before we do that though, before we talk about machines, let's talk about a simple thing like a car, okay? So before we talk about pulleys and gears, let's talk about the wheel function of the wheel. So here is a pattern I made for a simple car, okay? It's a 4x4 square with a front and an end of the car. So I'm just gonna fold this up into a basic car or cart to show you how the axles work. And I fold this over, kind of like the house we just did. Okay, make a box for your car body. There's your car body. And now I'm gonna take a number 5 axle, I'm gonna put it in the front, go right through both holes until it's evenly in. And when I say evenly in, that means it looks like this. Okay, it's evenly in. So there's room on both sides for a wheel. And I'll do the same thing over here on the other end. I'll put another number 5 axle. So they're evenly in. If it's not evenly in, when I put the wheel on all the way, it won't spin because there's a little bit of the key showing here. I want the key to be buried in there, so it's just a smooth shaft on both sides. The difference is this, so when it goes in, it'll spin freely, okay? So I'll put the wheels on now. Make sure the key is in the keyhole there, like so. Key in the keyhole. And key in the keyhole like that. See that? And you have your car. Now these can also be used as gears and pulleys. I'll show you a pulley right now if you want. Here we go. I'll show you a pulley. So these wheels have little teeth on them. And the teeth could be used for a pulley because there's a groove. And because there's a groove there, you could see how, again, that pulley can move both of these wheels like that. You see that? We're going to show you that in a second. So that's one thing you do with those. Now, before I go on, I want to show you one more kind of a car. This car is a little bit different than this car because it's using Trigons. And it's a really important distinction I want to show you because to avoid any kind of frustration later on, you need to know something. When you build a car made out of Trigons, because unlike the squares, the Trigons only have one of those little keyholes, okay? The square has a bunch of has a star, but the Trigon doesn't have a star. The Trigon only has one hole. Therefore, I'm gonna show you something. You have to line up the keyhole here with the keyhole on the other side. So this one's pointed up. See that keyhole is pointed up there? It's pointed up. That keyhole's right there. Same on the other side. So that when I put the shaft through here like that, it's gonna meet the other side here and go right through. Okay, if I don't do that, it's going to bump into it because the key's got to line up and the key's got to go in the lock evenly. Okay, and that's something you got to really watch out for because I'll give you an example. This one lines up fine, of course, because it was already in there. But this one here doesn't line up. This one's pointing down, but over here it's pointing to the side. So when I try to put it in, it's going to bump into this one. It's not going to want to go through. Okay, so that's what I mean by that. So this little car here, they both line up the same way, so the axle goes real nice. And so I can put this little wheel on here and it'll go on just fine. Okay, and that's how that works. And one thing also, if you're making a car and it's slipping and sliding around the table and it's not rolling, do you know why that might be? Why would you think these wheels are real hard, and on a table like this, they might not roll. And that might be because friction's important, okay? Like your bicycle tires have rubber wheels. They have rubber wheels because if your bicycle tires had steel wheels, the steel and the concrete wouldn't have enough friction. It'd be like ice. And your wheels would slide on the concrete or on the asphalt street, and they would not have a grip, and you'd slide and your bike would fall over and you'd crash. So you can put a rubber band on the wheel of your car. Now watch the difference here is that this wheel will now roll really easily. Okay, it'll roll really easily because there's a rubber band on. So if you want your wheels to roll better on a car, go ahead and put rubber bands on the wheels so they'll roll. Okay, so now let's move on. So another thing the wheels will do, They're called multi-wheels for a reason. They're called multi-wheels because they're not only wheels for like on a car, but they're also wheels that will do a gear. So these big wheels have been put together on this grid of squares, and you can see what happens here is I could just turn one wheel and it'll make all the other wheels go because the teeth have interlocked and now they make a gear, okay? And so the square wheels work really well on a square grid. Now, the difference between the squares and the trigons is that the trigon wheels on a square grid will be at the diagonal. So this is a square grid, this is a square grid, but these trigon wheels connect together on the diagonal at 45 degrees than the squares, which are horizontal and vertical, these are diagonal, okay, compared to the grid. So if I took this one off, for instance, here, you can see where if I wanted this to meet here, I'd put the peg in right here, the number 2 axle. I put this in like this. See, these going like that. I put this in like this wheel in here. And it meets. So these go the diagonal, these go vertical and horizontal. And also you can play around. Over here we have a grid that is a grid of trigons, okay? A hexagonal grid or a trigon grid. And then you'll find out that you can make the trigon multi-wheels and the square multi-wheels work together. They will work together on a trigon grid, okay? And if you want to work a little bit better, you can always put rubber bands in there so they connect, they will push against each other, create more friction between the gears. Here is a simple machine. Don't ask me what it is. It's a doohickey, okay? I used a dowel rod for a handle. But this doohickey shows you the 3 functions here. So we have wheels and also the gears and pulleys. So here we go. I'm going to turn this crank. Okay, and what's happening here is you can see these 2 wheels here are geared together, but these 2 wheels, so you can see it, are pulleyed. Now they have a pulley, and they're the same on the other side here too. I'll put this over here so you can see it. These guys are pulleys, but these 2 are gears, okay? And together, the work is being transferred from the crank through the gear, okay? And the gear, this one has a pulley and it's going to this wheel. Okay, and it's a very similar function as, you could probably recognize this because of the crank here, but of a fishing line. If you have a fishing reel, okay, you turn the handle and it turns a wheel that will turn the line, which will make a crank that will spool the fishing line. Okay, so that's an example of a simple machine using a crank, gears, and pulleys to make your work go around the system to do the kind of jobs you want to do with your machine. Okay, and that is how the gears and pulleys work on the Lux Blox multi-wheel with their multi-axles.